he knew how pervasive victimhood was, right? My dad's from the South. He's from Tyler, Texas in the 40s. My dad picked cotton. Point being, my daddy wasn't trying to hear me ever talk about these racial conditions in ways compared to what he had to go through. So he's like, accept the progress, accept that things are evolving and changing. So there's two things I live by, and one of them really applies here. One is life's a competition between you and yourself, Mark Twain. But the one that applies right here is that you have to be greater than your greatest excuse. After everything you lay out, I have to be greater than the greatest excuse. And everyone has excuses.
He is Marcellus Wiley. He played defensive end in the NFL for 10 years. Dallas, Jacksonville, San Diego, Buffalo. 10 seasons. He was a Pro Bowler. And he now is one of my favorite interviews of all time. We're going to talk about race. We're going to talk about DEI. We're going to talk about common sense. We're going to talk a little football mixed in with all of this because this discussion surrounds the NFL and a particular player named Lamar Jackson. This is going to be great. All I can say is subscribe so you never miss these episodes. Please hit that subscribe button because when gems like this drop, you want to be there. Marcellus Wiley is next. Doesn't it feel like things are moving really fast? And I think that's kind of a good thing. We're sort of making up for lost time, trying to get the world back on its axis in a way. Now, the Chinese U.S. Treasury hack, a new virus may be spreading in China. What else, though, is unfolding behind the scenes? Or worse, what critical information aren't you getting? Maybe it's being hidden. I don't know. But why gamble your financial future? You don't need to do that. Regardless of who's in office, safeguarding your wealth is absolutely essential. And many of us are hopeful as Trump is back in the Oval Office. But we all remember the challenges of the last election and the interference that hindered progress. And we see the Senate dragging its feet on the appointments right now. So relying solely on digital systems or the banks, I don't know. Is that a risk you can afford to take? Why don't you take a look at American Independence Gold? Visit tafoyagold.com now to learn more. You can call 833-324-4653. You know, for generations, gold and silver have been the ultimate safe haven, weathering wars, recessions, and market crashes. This is more than just about owning gold. It's about taking control of your financial future. As a proud veteran-owned company, which we love that, American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting military families. They cover custodial fees for life on qualifying accounts, and they donate a portion of every purchase to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Don't wait to secure your future. Why don't you act before it's too late? Visit tafoyagold.com. It's there on the screen, TAFOYA gold.com. Or you can call 833-324-4653. Call them today. That's 833-324-4653 or tafoyagold.com. Make the smart move for your future today at TAFOYA gold.com, tafoyagold.com. Marcellus, it is so great to see you. And I'm a huge fan. And part of the reason I wanted to have you on, I'm so glad you were able to do this, is because you and I have sort of been looking at these comments about Lamar Jackson from a similar point of view. And a lot of it surrounds Ryan Clark, who's, on NFL Countdown, Monday Night Countdown on ESPN, and whom I used to cover, whom you know, and the two of you see this very, very differently.
Right.
So I want to start with, though, just kind of pull back. Do you have any kind of relationship with Ryan?
Well, before I even go there, I just got to give you your flowers. And I've never told you this before. Obviously, we know each other. And I remember when you covered us one time for Monday Night Football. And I was so excited just to meet you. And I'm the little engine that could from Columbia. So it was like amazing to see Michele Tafoya out there. So it's great that all these years later, we're still.
I know. This is awesome. This is
Yeah,
awesome
this is
to
great.
reconnect this way and talk about something so different. We're not talking X's and O's today necessarily. And that's what makes this fun. But it's sports and it's culture. Yeah. And it's a little bit political. So do you know Ryan Clark very well? Or how well do you? Okay.
Yeah, so I was at ESPN and Ryan Clark was still an active player, kind of hybrid role, starting to get into the media. And we initially hit it off. I used to call him Stringer Bell for all those fans of The Wire. I used to always just laugh like, dog, you look like Stringer Bell. And then I watched him perform and do his craft. And I was like, dog, you got something there. It's going to work, man. And he was still playing, coming back and forth. I was going back and forth, whatever it was. That was it. That was the extent of our relationship. So if you want to stretch that, I was just a guy who early on thought that he was going to be a uber talent in the space. That was it. Never been to his house. He's never been to my house, blah, blah, blah. Then, life gets in the way. You're doing your thing. You're doing shows and you keep an eye out for people, but you know how it goes. Just like when you're playing football, you know the team you're going to play, and then all the other teams don't really count. They don't matter. You don't study them, right? So I didn't see his shows much and everything, but I heard he was doing well. That was life. And then you fast forward a few years, and I'm at Fox, and Ryan Clark is sounding different with the pandemic. I think a lot of people kind of changed their tune. I started to notice things that were coming out from him that were different than before, but more importantly, leaning into the racial conversation more than anything. Like his lead dog became based on color versus character, production, statistics. You got so many points of view that you can attack any topic. So I took notice of that. Then, of course, me, raised how I was raised, I'm always going to tell you how I feel about you, good, bad, or ugly. And I allow you the same room to do it as well. The thing about it is we're going to respectfully disagree. Like if we don't like something, I'm never going to call you out your name, go crazy, psycho, lose my mind, lose my way. And if you do that, I won't even try to check you. I won't even try to put you in your place. I will just back away. I will give you no energy, apathy. And that's what happened. I started to correct some of the things I saw that he was saying, using his words against himself. Yeah. And he didn't like that. And that's when I started getting called out my name. And you fast forward to as recent as yesterday.
Yes, yesterday. Still at
it.
Yeah.
So, I was going to flake on you because I was like, I am not trying to instigate this thing. But I was like, that's Michele Tafoya. And we had this book before this. So let's do what we do.
Listen, look, so it's interesting that you say in 2020, that people started to, and it really, people describe that year, Marcellus, as a quote unquote racial reckoning because of the George Floyd riots that were right here in my backyard in Minneapolis, where I currently live. Yeah. And that incident, and combine that with the pandemic and all these feelings were pent up and people went nuts. And some of it you can understand, and some of it you simply can't understand. You mentioned the way that you were raised. How did you look at 2020 in terms of that? I don't think you had the same sort of racial reckoning point of view, but you tell me.
Yeah, the way I was raised, it's a unique experience as I've grown older to realize that I'm a kid growing up in Compton. I'm there till about the age of 5, 6. Always there every single weekend, even after that. But we moved to greener pastures, and we go from Compton to South Central LA. Like we're so close to like affluence, and then we're like so far in terms of the conditions. But look, it didn't feel like a war zone to me, but it was pretty dangerous times. Crips and Bloods were for real. For those who have seen the series Snowfall, that's where I lived, and it was kind of wild. That said, the racial dynamic of my neighborhood was mostly, if not all, Black. So there wasn't even time to even talk about racism because if anything was bad happening to you, it was a Black person doing it to you, right? So I never looked at it like, oh, white people. I never looked at it like, oh, other side of town. It was like I was just in my own little comfort zone / some would say war zone. But there were a couple of moments that really changed my racial lens and how I looked at it. My grandmother used to host, and she worked at a hospital. So she used to host all the people who worked at the hospital at our house sometimes. And then it turned into, she used to actually take care of 2 different patients. One was a war veteran named John. We call him Uncle John. Older white man, 70 or so years old. I'm like a youngster. And he was paralyzed. So he couldn't move. He was bedridden. And all you would hear is Uncle John, old white man, hitting his banister. He wanted something. You go back there, help him out, all that kind of stuff. Reason I bring that up is the power dynamic was being altered in my mind. Here's a white person that I'm going to hear about later that I got to look out for, that is the superior, or they run the country and look out for white man. And I'm like, the first white man I met needed me. He needed me to help him do everything. And then you go beyond that. She took care of another patient, Aunt Gloria. And she had dementia and everything. So some days she knew you, some days she didn't know you. But the point is, I had to take care of her. She couldn't do anything without me when I was over there. So I never looked at people by their skin color. I don't think that your epidermis informs me of anything, whatever shade it is. It tells me nothing. You want to know why? Because I am this big black football player from Compton. And that comes with a stereotype. And then if you meet me in 7 seconds, you want to ball up that stereotype and throw it away and say, he's a different animal. I think everyone should be afforded that privilege. And thankfully, my experience afforded that to me.
Oh my gosh. I love this story. I also love the story that you were a typing champion, but we're going to get to that late. That's a tease, folks. The 1988 National Typewriting Champion. You're looking at him, Marcellus Wiley.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I didn't forget your question. Let's get to 2020. Oh, I just had to give you some backdrop.
All right. That's the backdrop. Let's go to 2020.
So 2020 happens, and the reason why I know people were acting different, because it happened to me. I remember vividly, I'm at a red light with my wife, and we're going back to the house. You know, the kids are, they're on their iPads. And you're living
where at this point? What town are you?
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in Studio City, California, right over the hill. So, you know, the kids, they're on their iPads. That was schoolwork. It was crazy. And we were going somewhere. And I remember they started the protests, riots, whatever it may have been. And my wife hit me. She's like, honk. I was like, honk for what? And I saw a little crowd over there. She said, honk for them. And it was Black Lives Matter. And I looked and I was like, but why would I honk? I said, I'm already black. Well, I got to tell them I'm black. Like, they look at me, I'm black. And then she was like, no, honk, support them. I said, but what are you supporting? Like, that looks like an organization. That looks like a cause. I've been to college. Every time I used to walk back and forth on campus, somebody was protesting something. I was like, even if you were my friend, I'm like, dog, you got to inform me before I support. I ain't the one. So I'm like, okay. I'm not going to honk because that's not me, because I don't know what I'm honking for, but I will learn about what their organization is. And I remember reading their mission statement, every group text, everybody calling, everybody talking about BLM. And I finally read the mission statement. I said, let me see what they're really about, because I am getting nudged from every direction. As a black man, you got to support it. And I read it, and I remember it was 3:00 in the morning, right before I had to go to work that day. And I read it. And I said, man, I don't think everybody's read this. I think people are blindly supporting them. If you read this is pretty obvious. It doesn't fit my life. You know, I am big on the nuclear family. I am big on raising the kids. I'm big on that structure, etc. And I just was like, okay, like I did with Ryan Clark, like I do with anything. If I have a problem with it, I have a problem with it, not you. So right. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to read this mission statement and then tell you what I think is wrong. I'm not attacking the founders. I'm not attacking the members. But since so many people have their identity wrapped in their ideas, when I talk about it, they feel like I'm talking about them.
Sure.
And them hit dogs start hollering. 2020 was wild. That was the first time I ever got called a sellout, like outwardly, like, you know, like everybody online. One, I'm at Fox, so I understood where they were trying to go with that, even though that's lazy because Fox is not running Fox Sports, but right. I digress. Then I'm working with Jason Whitlock, who's heard this over the years. Yeah. So now I'm getting colored in perception and association. And now you don't rock with BLM? 2020 was crazy. But the way I was raised, I count those with me, not those against me. So none of it fazed me. And as a matter of fact, it kind of opened my eyes to now, wow, people are really getting lost in agenda. So it made it easier for me to stand tall in who I was because I'm not agenda-based. I'm just trying to live a good life and pass on some greatness to my kids.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And by the way, I remember too, one night on, it was then Twitter, I wrote All Lives Matter. And for the next 3 hours, my life was occupied by conversing with people. And I remember a couple days later, Richard Sherman was asked, he was with Seattle at the time, he was asked how he felt about that. I think he was with Seattle still. And he said, all lives matter. I don't remember, he grew up in a similar situation as you.
Yeah, he's from Compton as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't remember this happening when there was black on black crime in my neighborhood. I don't remember people rushing to say Black Lives Matter. I don't remember that. And I was like, thank you, Richard. So
Right.
it really is something. And this came up in my interview with Ryan Clark, which I did recently. Now we get to Ryan Clark because he has been on this, he's been championing Lamar Jackson as sort of a cultural representative of the African-American community. And as you and I both know, Doug Williams was the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. He did it with the then Washington Redskins, now Commanders. And it was a remarkable moment, a big moment. I mean, yes, he was the first, right? And so firsts get that kind of attention, and I remember it super well. I want to play this cut for you. This is Ryan Clark. I can't tell you how many people have asked me about sleep cream and have ended up going and trying it for themselves and love it. I got an email from someone the other day, a complete stranger, who wrote to tell me how happy they were that their wife, who is having trouble sleeping because she's ill, has gotten the sleep cream and it's really helped her, and that they got great customer service from our friends at Sleep Cream. We love them. So sleep is a big problem. And sleep cream has helped me. I must tell you this. I sleep so much better because it's not a drug. It's not a prescription. It's a topical cream. So I just apply it at bedtime. It's really simple. And you know what? I was skeptical. I thought, yeah, really? But I tried it and it works. Okay. The company is Sleep Cream and they use an all natural CBD combined with the finest essential oils. I particularly like the rose. So I'll just put it on the insides of my forearms, insides of my wrists, maybe on my neck, bottoms of my feet, wherever. You can find them at sleepcream.com, and the cream is spelled CREME, like creme. Just try Sleep Cream for a couple nights. See if it works for you as well as it does for me. And if you don't find that you sleep better, Sleep Cream will refund your purchase, guaranteed. You don't even have to return anything. Go to sleepcream.com. That's sleepcream.com with cream spelled CREME.com. And for the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY at checkout, all one word, GAMEDAY. And you can get free standard shipping on your first order. Again, the code is GAMEDAY. If you're ready for your best sleep ever, sleep, CREME.com, sleepcream.com. Use that code GAMEDAY for free standard shipping on your first order, sleepcream.com. I want to play this cut for you. This is Ryan Clark on ESPN talking about how now, here we are in 2025, this is bigger than Doug Williams. So roll the clip, John.
Let's be real. Lamar Jackson is playing for more than himself. And I know we've had the Doug Williams win Super Bowls, Patrick Mahomes, we've had the Russell Wilsons, but Lamar Jackson is different from all of them. Lamar Jackson has gone against the status quo, gone against the familiar since the moment he was drafted by not choosing an agent and staying with his mother, allowing her to be part of his representation by the hair he wears, by the way he talks, by the way he plays. This is bigger than Doug Williams.
Bigger than Doug Williams. What I'm sure I know you heard this originally.
Yes.
What was your reaction?
He's talking in code, and he's really dancing around what he wants to say. So he's not saying it with his chest. What he wants to say is, in the black community, there are different types of Black people. Like I'm sure every community has it, but I'm Black, so I get to see it ultra close. There are like, oh, you're a Black guy, but you're trying to act white, sellout. You're a Black guy, but you're down, street, hood, gangster. You're a normal Black guy, etc. So there's been these conversations like around Russell Wilson. He Black, but he a square. Remember they called him, somebody on ESPN called him a square. So he Black, but. So I'm focusing on the but. So Patrick Mahomes right now, who is bigger, if you want to say anybody bigger than Doug Williams, it's Patrick Mahomes. But then it's like, well, he's Black, but he's Black and white. Different conversation. Okay, Russell Wilson. Well, he ain't Black, authentic, or people want to say that word and then not say that word. They want to throw it out there and hide their hands, whatever. What they're trying to say is, damn, when we gonna have a real one? Like he from the hood, or he looks like a stereotype, or he looks like how we are, and he can't say that eloquently. So it comes out choppy like that. When we already first of all, if you're looking for a Black quarterback that's had success, you're about 30, 40 years late. We already seen it, right? We already got Warren Moon in the Hall of Fame. We got Doug Williams winning the Super Bowl. So stop checking the same box. That box has been checked. Move on. Look through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. But he's wanting to say, man, nobody ever talked like Lamar, like a real one, with his hair like that and keeping it real, and won. And I'm like, I don't even think that's a category, but if it is for you, go ahead. But you know what? This is why I laugh at these guys, and they really get irked when I talk back to them. I'm like, dog, first of all, nothing you're going to say is going to make my blood pressure go that high. Like, dog, I have a perspective in life. This is a conversation. Let's respect each other, even in disagreement. I look at it like, what is the point of, even if he does win one, what could you say after that win that finally we have what? We've already seen Black success at the position. Right. We know the history. We know where we are now. So I think it's fraudulent. I think these guys are deeply insecure of their own Black experience. I think that they're either
Why would that be?
Well, they're either covering up because maybe they were the one being teased that they weren't Black enough, or they want to go out there now, and because they have platform, they want to speak for everybody. They want to speak for all of us. I want to represent. Yeah. And that sounds great, except none of us should speak for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't speak for all women, and not all women speak for me. So there we go. I want to play this second cut. Now, this is when Ryan, and I give him credit, he came on to join me. He knew what my stance on this was. And we talked about that word authentic. Go ahead and roll it, John.
Well, so what did you mean by authentic? Because you only compared him to other Black quarterbacks.
Right. But I never mentioned authentically Black. To even put that in quotations is a lie. Right? Because I never said it. I said he's authentically himself. He remained authentically himself when people asked him to change.
When he was saying, you did say at the end, Ryan, there's a whole culture that he's representing. Yes. Okay. Yes. What culture are you referring to?
I'm referring to the culture of African Americans. I'm referring to the Black culture. I'm referring to a quarterback that comes from South Florida. And when he goes back to do his camps or to do his community work, he goes back to those communities.
I mean, that's not unique to Lamar Jackson, is it? Go ahead.
This is the beauty of the show that I do, my podcast Hydration Situation, because it's exactly this. All the years of working in the studio and hosting shows, I was one of the guys that would always push back on my coworkers, co-hosts, and say, hey, don't go too far in criticism of these guys, because, hey, we're up here in these air-conditioned studios with suits on. It's easy to get distant and disconnected from that real experience. And the only reason I bring that up before I answer what Ryan Clark was trying to do is because when you try to say something that is not genuine, disingenuous like he is, it comes out so choppy. It comes out so like multi-layered when the truth is simple and lies are complex. And it sounds like he was trying to cover for something that he know he was lying about. Here's how you nail him. What does going back to South Florida have to do with the entire Black experience? Like, it's almost like he doesn't want to admit, and people don't want to admit, there are affluent Black people. Like, my son was born into affluence.
Yeah.
My son was born in Encino. Like, I was born in Compton.
Right on.
And that is Martin Luther King's dream being realized. It's like, do you not want us to win? Do you not want us to gain? Do you not want us to progress? And I mean all of us. And it sounds like some people don't. They want to say, nah, he really representing. He going back to South Florida. What he wanted to say, let me clean it up. He wanted to say he go back to the hood and help out the kids in the neighborhood, the underserved, underprivileged, whatever. And that's what he does. That's great for Lamar, but that's not the whole Black experience. So the same thing that he will fight against, which is Black people are monolith and monolithic, is the same thing he's actually promoting and supporting, because he's trying to make my 9-year-old son think that he's Black, but he's different Black because he ain't down in the hood of South Florida in those situations.
He's not Black enough, or he's not the right kind of Black, which is bizarre to me. But we do see it go, look, we see it going on in women's groups as well. I like women don't support, these women's groups don't support conservative women, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. All right. I just want to play this one other cut for you, because I think this accentuates everything you just said. And I love the way you put it. And I don't know why some people get to decide what's authentic and what's not. But here he goes into talking about Patrick Mahomes and why he and, Russell Wilson maybe are more mainstream Black people. Go ahead, John, roll it.
When you think about Patrick Mahomes, the mainstream accepts him and has always accepted him. And he's more familiar to everyone than a Lamar Jackson is. When you think about a guy who was raised in professional baseball dugouts, who is married, right, to a white woman whose mother is a white woman, he is more familiar to what the mainstream is than a Lamar Jackson would be. When you think about a Russell Wilson and the way that he was raised and the way that he communicates and the way that he dresses, also at the time of being drafted, was married to a white woman. And I believe I forget what year it was 17 or 18, when confronted with Black Lives Matter, because Michael Bennett had wore a t-shirt, he was very clear that all lives mattered. And so there was really there's never been a pushback on who Russell Wilson was. Actually, Richard Sherman was as well. And I want to say this to be clear. None of those are bad things. I don't believe those things are wrong. What I'm saying is those things make you more easily palatable to mainstream media.
I don't know, because, I think that anytime the Baltimore Ravens are going to play football, all the networks want to cover it, because Lamar Jackson is one of the most talented quarterbacks the league has ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, what an exhausting way to live. Like, I'm just burnt just hearing him go through all those granular ways of trying to lie about the fact that you just want somebody from the hood to be beloved. Well, I think LeBron James will qualify for that if you really want to play this card. Like, it's just fun. It's a deck of cards that everyone plays them. You just brought up women and then conservatives. Like, we know all of the different cards. And I don't think there are any cards out there that haven't been played. So It's like, if you really need somebody to be accepted in the mainstream that's from the bottom, ain't that LeBron James? Like, a single mom.
Yeah.
Didn't know his dad, right? And who is more accepted than LeBron James? The dude is a billionaire actively playing. No other athlete that I remember was ever that, except Tiger Woods, if you call it still golfing, because he's in and out. But actively football, basketball, and you still in your prime. And LeBron could play 5-10 more years if he wanted to, etc. But didn't go to college. Like you've already had your moment.
Yeah.
Like how many firsts are there going to be?
That's what I asked him. I said, how many times do we have to go through this before we've satisfied everyone? And he said, as long as there are firsts. So I'm like, okay. So in other words, I can only live by my own experience. I was not the first woman sideline reporter. That was Leslie Visser. And I give her due. She was the first. Someone had to walk through that door and she did. So I'm grateful to her. But you know what? I was the first kind of Hispanic woman. So shouldn't that count for something? You know, I was a working mom. Shouldn't that count for something? You know, I have brown hair. Oh, but Leslie Visser does too. Okay, I have brown eyes. Shouldn't that count for? I mean, at what point do we stop this box checking that you talked about? There is a lot going on in the world, and pretty much all of it affects us in some way, shape, or form financially. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what we are or aren't being told. So gambling your financial future, why would you want to do that? Now, regardless of who's in office, you want to safeguard your wealth and you want to grow your wealth. And many of us are hopeful right now that we've got a new administration in here in 2025, but we know there are going to be challenges. We see the Senate trying to block and slow down some of the appointments of cabinet members. So relying solely on digital systems or banks, that's a risk you can't really afford to take. And that's why I urge you to look at American Independence Gold. Here's how you find out more. Just visit tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com to learn more. Here's a number you can call as well. Get a pen. 833-324-4653. 833-324-4653. You know, for generations, gold and silver has been the ultimate safe haven. It's weathered wars, recessions, market crashes. This is more than just owning gold. It's about taking control of your financial future. And as a proud veteran-owned company, American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting military families. They cover custodial fees for life on qualifying accounts, and they donate a portion of every purchase to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, one of our favorites. Don't wait to secure your future. Act before it's too late. Go to tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com. It's in the show notes. It's there on your screen. 833-324-4653. If you want to call instead, 833-324-4653 or tafoyagold.com. Make the smart move for your future today at tafoyagold.com. I mean, at what point do we stop this box checking that you talked about?
Yeah, it's so fear-based. People, you know, just studying civilization, people, when they deal with their anxieties and fears, like to group up. That's why communication is so important. And that's why you always see tribalism, because people are scared to know the unknown. So there's fear of the unknown. And then more importantly, they get their strength and their courage and communication in groups. So I grew up where it was Crips and Bloods. So I saw this actually live out through my younger years. And I didn't join that gang or that gang. I joined a gang of doing what I wanted to do. The only box I wanted to be put in was no box. So I'm not going to be a Crip. I'm not going to be a Blood. Family members were, but I was not. So that's a gang in itself. Like you're trying to live a life fighting away and fighting around all the people trying to recruit you in their groups, right? So when I see this whole, hey, you know what, man, you ain't something unless you are this. And he's trying to dance around that. But there's judgment that comes from when you're not. It's judgment if you say all lives matter, right? Which we know is factually correct. Because if you ever been to a funeral, no one cares about the color. You ever been to a hospital deathbed, no one cares about the color. Right. One of the most and gut-wrenching moments you can have is when you're in a lobby knowing you're about to lose a loved one. And then you're sitting next to somebody who looks completely opposite in you, and you guys both feel the same thing. Yeah. That's the human spirit and connection, not the color. So one of the things that cracks me up is because a lot of people come to me and say, Marcellus, you're the first guy I know from Compton to go to Columbia. Black guy, right? And I'm like, maybe, maybe not. And they actually say it in a way and holding their breath like I'm supposed to be like super proud of that. And I'll tell you why I'm not. And the reason I'm not super proud of it or like, oh yeah, throw me my flowers is because to become a pioneer, a first in anything, that meant you were being led in the dark. You didn't see anybody else do it. I didn't see someone go from Compton to Columbia. And frankly, I want to empower more kids to realize you don't have to see someone do something that you want to do. If someone else is not dreaming your dream and living that in reality, that should not stop any of your energy in pursuing that. And I think this whole representation conversation, even though on its surface, it serves a great purpose, actually does some harm because I've seen kids who say, well, I can't do that. Why? Because no one I know does that. No one that looks like me does that.
Looks like me. Looks like me.
I'm like, and? Like, there's so many people I know who are the first of, and who led them? Everything you want out there is in here. So if you really want it out there, stop talking about somebody's color, or are they from my neighborhood, or yeah, I grew up and I knew him. All that is cute. But what's best is that you go in here to go get what you want out there.
Amen. I mean, I just can't agree with you enough. I am so tired of hearing people say, finally, someone who looks like me. And by the way, they tend to overlook history. I mean, I think there's this recency bias. I remember watching the Grammys recently. I did it for my daughter's sake, okay? Because these award shows are a perfect example of where this stuff goes haywire. And a Black female singer was giving credit to another Black female singer for finally providing an example of someone who looks like me in this space. And I thought, have you ever heard of Ella Fitzgerald or Billie Holiday or any of these singers from decades and decades ago who look like you? Why don't they matter? It's because, and it's this thing that you touched on, that they don't want to let go of this grievance. I think maybe because it's easier to say, oh, I couldn't have success because no one that looks like me has success. It's easier to stop trying than to just say, God dang it, I'm going to take everything that's in here, like you talked about, my courage, my resilience, I think courage is such a big word because people, like you said, they're afraid. That's when you go. That's when you go. Because if you don't ever step out of those little boundaries you put on yourself, you'll never know how freaking resilient you are.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Look, I'm not going to ignore and negate the historical imbalances. I get that. I understand that. We all know that, right? But as I sit here and talk to you now, I have to give you present day circumstances, or else everything just becomes a history lesson.
Yes.
Like like my daddy even told me this, because my daddy, he knew how pervasive victimhood was, right? My dad's from the South. He's from Tyler, Texas in the 40s. My dad picked cotton. Now, he wasn't a slave, obviously. He said he picked cotton for like $1. And I was like, a day, an hour? He was like, I think it was the summer. Like the whole summer, they got $1. Point being, my daddy wasn't trying to hear me ever talk about these racial conditions in ways compared to what he had to go through. So he's like, accept the progress, accept that things are evolving and changing. So I say this, that Black singer talking to the other Black singer, so look, well-intended, but forgets, who did that Black singer have to thank, right? So you sitting there like, thank you for opening up the door. She's like, well, you could open them up too, because I opened them up if you really want to go there. So it's like kind of weird in that respect. Yeah. But this is my mantra. There's two things I live by, and one of them really applies here. One is life's a competition between you and yourself, Mark Twain. But the one that applies right here is that you have to be greater than your greatest excuse.
Yeah.
And the reason why I am not living a life where I have to listen to all of these agendas and all of these identities and identity politics is because regardless, after everything you lay out, I have to be greater than the greatest excuse. And everyone has excuses. Everyone has something in their life. Yes, even the rich white person and their affluent family. And I've done this because I coach kids. So some kid shows up with the nanny. I was like, oh, okay, you're a little late. Nanny didn't know where to go. That's fine. Where's your mom? Dubai. Where's your dad? Cabo. Interesting. Now, most people want to hear a horror story with a family and it has to be a minority, single parent, etc. I've seen some single parent households. Mama is on it. Daddy is on it. Whoever is the single parent. And it's not based on color. It's not that. It's based on commitment to whatever I have, whatever cards have been dealt to me, I'm going to play the best hands. And I wish people would have that mindset instead of telling me how they got dealt the worst hand. Right. You can still win this game if you really want to go out there and be greater than your greatest excuse.
Yes, sir. So let me ask you then how you feel about, so we have a new president in the White House, and he has set these orders to get rid of DEI within the federal government and also to look at outside organizations, whether it's an academic institution, whether it's a major corporation or a nonprofit. And if they have these DEI rules that some people think are counterproductive and don't necessarily reward merit, they're getting rid of it. They want to get rid of it. Yeah. What do you make of that?
I'm in support of getting rid of it. I'm not a fan of affirmative action. And sometimes people push back on me when I say that. It's like, oh, well, how you think you got to Columbia? I was like, good luck proving that. Like, you think you see my test scores? What? You ever been in class with me? Good luck. Like, but in all seriousness, I want a merit-based society. Here's the problem with believing in meritocracy is you have to trust human beings to be the grantors of that merit and that meritocracy. And the problem is human beings are imperfect. So therefore, there will never be a complete meritocracy, right? But I do want to get rid of DEI. I do want to get rid of affirmative. I don't need anybody saying, let's race. What we going to race? The 100 meters. Okay, on your mark. He said, no, wait. You get to go up 10 yards. What race is this? I'm running a 90, you running 100? Yeah. You know why. I don't think you can beat me. Man, look, I'm staying right next to you. Let's race. I just have that mindset, that mentality. And I love when people say, I say, and good luck being born in worse conditions than me. Good luck being more poor than me. I grew up on food stamps, welfare. My grandmother moved from Watts after the Watts riots because she wanted greener pastures, found herself in Compton. We know how Compton turned out. It turned out like Watts. And then my mother says, lost her brothers to the streets, my uncles, murdered, 2 murdered, 1 suicide, all of the ills, all of the stuff. And my mother says, not my baby boy, not my daughter. We go into greener pastures. We go to South Central. I've been through it. And the thing is, I'm not like Ryan Clark and others. When you really go through it, the last thing you want to do is have people thinking that's the best way. Everybody I knew grew up with me was like, man, we got to try and find a way out and then come back and help. But we need to get out of this because this is crazy. Yeah. All of the bandwidth and the RAM that I had to use on the daily just to get home, like can't go over here, can't wear this, can't say that, can't look at him. And I'm like, I'm 9 years old. What the hell are we talking about? And now Ryan Clark and others get on these huge platforms and want to show that that's the way to go, or Lamar Jackson is representing that. What he's representing is even in those conditions, greatness exists. He's not trying to promote those conditions. And I hate when you're like, well, I need somebody to do it like that from there. I'm like, if anybody does it, we need to applaud them. Yeah. Not just the ones like me who are from the mud, as they say. So we get lost in this conversation. Lamar Jackson doesn't need the pandering from any analyst. He doesn't need to be looked at differently than a Josh Allen. He doesn't need you to support him. Oh, you played okay. He knows those turnovers cost him the game. Yeah. He's okay with that. Why aren't you? Why are you pandering to somebody who doesn't need it?
Bravo, amen. I cannot let you go without completing this tease that we've got to fulfill it now. You were the 1988 National Typewriting Champion. Now, kids, there used to be what we called typewriters.
Say it.
And they look a lot like the keyboards that you might have on a laptop. How did this happen?
Oh, man. Like every kid in the 8th grade, you remember those electives, like those easy courses.
Oh, yeah.
Shop, typewriting.
Drama,
theater. Like, it's supposed to be the easy A, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to take my elective easy A course. But I was like, let me take one that may pay itself forward. Like what one actually are skills that I would need. And I didn't want to do shop or mechanics. I was like, I'm not going to ever. There's AAA. I ain't never fixing a car. Like whatever. So I was like, typing. Because when I go to college, I'm going to have to type out my papers. Perfect. I'm going to learn to type. And then I get into this class with everybody else. So, 30 typewriters, 30 students, Murder, She Wrote typewriters. Like, remember those? Like,
yes.
It was loud as hell in that damn room. And then day one, they give you a workbook, right? I'm like, all right. And then it's just words in there. And then it's like they're teaching you the home keys and all that.
Right.
Blah, blah. You fast forward. Everybody's typing like 5 words a minute. Like we are horrible. Like, where's the T? Where's the R? Where's the, we're doing that. You fast forward about 3 weeks. The whole class is around 10 to 15 words a minute. We're picking it up. Then you go about a month or two later, we're like 20, 25. And that was it. And then one day on the way home, I'm on the bus, same school bus every single day. And I'm looking outside. And every day I used to look at the same things. Which car I wanted that I couldn't afford. We used to play a game called Contact. That's my car. Contact. Or what cute girls were walking up and down the street. It was like, ooh, what school she go to? Like, that's all we did for 30, 40 minutes each way every day, wasting time, right? Could have been doing our homework, etc. That was our game. And then one day, while doing that game, I looked at a street sign. I said, and I typed it out in my head and fingers right there on my lap. Slauson, Slauson. And I was like, then I saw another one. I was like, Overhill. And then next thing I know, I start doing that to everything I saw. Every sign I would see, and I would do it in my head. Then I start hiding my fingers because I was starting to look a little weird. And I was like, Michelle, let me tell you, we get to class, everybody's stuck at 25, 30. Guess who's at 40? Everyone stuck at 25 and 30. Guess who's at 50? They stuck at 25, 30. I'm at 60. So my cheat code was Malcolm Gladwell. I was getting my 10,000 hours basically by that practice, those subtle things. Everyone successful, whoever you are, from the high to the low, we all have the same bank account of time, 24 hours. I started to use my time properly. Instead of just looking at cute girls and cars, I was typing out every word. Next thing I know, they enter me. My teacher just says, Marcellus, you're entered in the National Typewriting Championship. And I was like, what is that? And she was like, I just told you. You're in the National Typewriting Championship. I go to this auditorium. I'm in this auditorium with all these nerds, and I'm a nerd too, but I don't look nerdish. They look nerdish. And I was like, damn, we all together. Let's go. So I'm in there, and it's the craziest moment. There's like this professor, and everyone's at their typewriters, and you got your workbook, and they say, you have 1 minute. Go. I mean, first of all, these kids from around the world, or wherever they came from the country, they were typing, and you got to be focused. And I'm like, God dang. And you can just hear, da, 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 da. And I'm like, they typing faster than me. Oh, God. Minute's over. We wait 10, 20 minutes. I don't know how long it took them to tabulate it. They come back in. We have a champion. And I'm like, man, it's probably Michelle over there. It's probably Jason over there. So I'm like, who won? Marcellus Wiley. I was like, what the hell? And I type 82 words a minute. And more importantly, I think this is why I won. Only one error. Everybody else was trying to type so damn fast. They were messing that stuff up. That wasn't eligible. You couldn't read any of that. And me, I got it. So I got a book and some award somewhere. National Typewriting Challenge.
I just love that story. That's awesome.
I love it. I love the lesson in it. Like just a little a day. People think you got to take big chunks.
It's consistency and it's a little a day. It's oh my gosh. I am so glad to reconnect with you. And this has been one of my favorite conversations of all time.
Oh,
I'm not kidding you. Marcellus Wiley, are people still buying your book? I want to promote your book.
Yes, Never Shut Up. It came out during the pandemic, so it was a tough press run, but at the same time, people love it. Great reviews. It's just a book about what I endured. Yeah. And it's not so much about me, it's about it and how you can get to wherever you want to go, no matter what the conditions and circumstances are.
And you don't have to ever shut up. And you shouldn't ever shut up.
Never shut up. Never stop telling the world exactly who you are. And that's what Never Shut Up is. It's the essence. Like, you know who you want to be. You know what you can be. Well, don't let the world tell you can't. And please don't let them box you in and tell you, well, you can if you do this. You can't because you are that. Nah, I didn't listen to any of that. I never shut up.
You have agency, folks. Use it. You have it. Use it. He's Marcellus Wiley, the book, Never Shut Up. We will put the link in there in the show notes so people can go find that book, as well as his podcast and everything else you're doing. Bravo, man. I'm so thrilled to see you doing the things that you're doing, saying the things that you're saying. And thanks for coming on the show.
No, I appreciate it so much. And like I said, when I first met you all the way to today, much respect and love for you. Keep it going.
Mwah. All right, everyone. Like I say at the end of every single podcast, and I think Marcellus exemplifies this, be brave and do good. And we will see you next time. He's Marcellus Wiley. I'm Michele Tafoya. Bye-bye.